Today we'll be talking about some either case studies or strategies which show some hope or some promise to either regulate the private healthcare sector or to ensure its accountability or to ensure its responsiveness.
So one of the things in Uganda was to do with the PPPs, and specifically this one is a documentation of a case that we've had and filed as an organization before the courts of Uganda. And so how this particular PPP was structured is that the government often has, so the hospital is a private not-for-profit, and so much of the time the government has a list of facilities that it does give what we call PHC, and that is the primary healthcare grants. So it is one of the hospitals that was receiving that grant, and so what we realized is that there was an incident where a young lady went to the hospital and she lost her baby, and so after that, and ultimately I think it was because of negligence to some degree of the medical personnel. But we first pursued a negligence case before the courts of law, but then as it is, I think even in other jurisdictions, it's rather hard to prove that. So ultimately we had to drop the negligence case and decided to go for an access to information request case. And so in this, we tried requesting, one, it was the person herself who tried writing to the hospital, because again, given the nature of confidentiality and everything, you want to violate the privacy. So she did first, and she was not given. And with her consent, we also put in request for the information that still was not given. So after that happened is when we filed this access to information case. Now the challenge is, as you can see from the slide, is that in Uganda the Access to Information Act does not apply to private entities. It does not. So it's about information that is within the hands of the state. It clearly shows that this is the policy, the policy and legal framework. And so we have the article that guarantees the right to information, and then other sections from the Access to Information Act that was later on, promulgated or enacted, and also the Patients Charter. But as you can still see from that article of the Constitution, it is very clear that any information that is in the possession of the state. So how we deal with the PPPs is that we thought it would be very important for us to know that at the very bare minimum, if public funds are being given to this entity, then by all means, there ought to be some level of accountability, or by all means, this entity has to be held as acting for and on behalf of the government. On section 16, which in a way of the Patients Charter, in a way substantively talks about you being entitled to your information, we've noted that this does not have any legal force, at least in Uganda it doesn't have. It's a charter that has been developed by the Ministry of Health, and it does not have law-making powers, yeah? So that does not help us much, and that is, if you're following the conversations that were going on yesterday, that is particularly why we're trying to advocate for the enactment of the Patient Rights and Responsibilities Bill, because then we believe that it will substantively lay out some of these things.
So when we are looking at access to medicine in this whole part of the Asian region, I think Sri Lanka started its struggle way back in 1956, when Professor Bibile first, looking at the expenditure of drugs and the plight of patients, stated there should be an essential group of drugs that has to be really looked at and should be sponsored by the government. In 1970, pushed the 1970 government to get a committee done to look at those, and he was chairing the committee, and he was able to push for bulk procurement of all the medicines of the country through a single agency in the government. So in 1990, actually, a group of us as students started this campaign with Dr. Bala who was supporting us, and Dr. Veera Surya, who was a professor of pharmacology, supported us, and some of us as students started this. So our main issue was there wasn't a document as policy on access to drugs. So what we wanted for 15 years, from 1990 to 2005, we pushed for a policy document of medicinal drugs, which we were able to get after so much of struggle in 2005, where the whole main objective was to ensure availability and affordability of efficacious, safe and good quality medicines relevant to the healthcare needs of the people in a sustainable and equitable manner. This was the guiding principles. When the private market is given markups based on cost and the percentage of cost as a markup, the retailer try to sell the most expensive drugs that would give him the most profit. And the companies will try to push the most expensive drugs to the retailer, showing that they will get the maximum profit if they go for the originator brand or the highest generic. So for that, we proposed within that meeting with a huge struggle to give a dispensing fee not based on percentage. And we were able to get into the policy. That when you look at, although I stated at the beginning we have a better system, if you look at the availability of basic, essential, non-communicable disease drugs, government sector availability is low. The retailer in the private sector has more drugs compared to the government facility. Therefore, people, they go to the hospital, if they don't have the drugs, they have to go outside and purchase. So the PHM, we went across the country and we came up a statement that we need health as a fundamental right in our constitution. When we are doing this, we had an opportunity because the government appointed in 2015 want to change the constitution. So we have a window, and they have appointed a public hearings commission to get our views. And that this particular statement, on the second day we asked for a meeting, and I, on behalf of PHM, with many of other colleagues, we presented half an hour giving evidence that this is a necessity. And the commissioner say yes, we agree to that. However, when they summarize all those and when it took to the parliamentary select committee, about 1 year after, it came as emergency medical treatment is only in that particular document which went to the parliament. That's the state. However, then we thought that it's not going to work. Then we submitted a private bill to the parliament from one of our senior members who became a parliamentarian, and it's on the parliament table now as a private member's bill to get this enacted again. And we are trying our best to doing a campaign in the country at the moment.
As you all know, we are in largely unregulated, unaccountable, huge private healthcare sector in India, unlike Sri Lanka. Many industrial complex onslaught is there. I mean, there are corporatization, technology, MRI, lab, chain, everything. What has happened is there is a massive trust deficit between the doctors and the patients, and there are violence attack on doctors. Everybody is churning. The doctors are angry, the patients are angry, the government is helpless, and there are bouncers outside the corporate hospitals because they want to prevent it. This is a reality of private health sector, big sector. 80% of OPD goes to private sector, 60% of indoor is admitted in the private sector, and now as with PPPs, even the public money is drained into private sector, which is totally unregulated, unaccounted. I interview about 78 doctors across India, all private doctors, specialists and super specialists, and they are very, very restless about what is happening to their beloved food. I was declared as #1 enemy from Indian Medical Association, but a positive thing also happened, and that is what a small beginning. Doctors came together and we formed Alliance of Doctors for Ethical Healthcare. Doctors be a part of the change. nearly around the ADH is an advocacy group of medical professionals across India who promote and support patient-centered, rational medical practice, free from any commercial influence. Big task, huge task. Nearly 200 doctors from across India have joined our alliance. An active group of 20 doctors across India. We meet each year and we have formed a WhatsApp group, the advocacy group, and we are moving into growing. The goal of ADH is to bring universal healthcare in India. So, our objective is to bring the universal healthcare in India. And the objectives, few of the objectives I am saying is checking corporatization of healthcare, regulation of pharma industry, equipment industry and consumable, and honoring patient rights, transparency regarding charges. These are the few of our objectives. We supported Niti Aayog for capping the trade margins of devices to 30%, and we are invited by the key stakeholders. Joint Parliamentary Committee for Submission of Demands on related to National Health Commission invited us as ADH. So these are the some baby steps. As I said, there is no impact, there is no much success. We are trying our level best, but we are also taken some baby steps. But the challenges are huge. Private healthcare sector has become a giant monolith with huge power. So everybody is afraid. Doctors are afraid, patients are afraid. They are all helpless. Patients have become consumers. You must know that patients also want a military thing. So that is also one very huge challenge to tackle, because we have to tackle both sides. So what we are doing with presenting that is we are tearing the mask of private health sector and showing people that more you put money, more you get the healthcare, not the quality healthcare. So that is what we are doing. And lastly, the fundamental changes are required to undo all these things. A big regulation is required, and that requires a political will which is not there.
सबसे पहले मेरा इस मेडिकल लाइन से कोई ताल्लुकात नहीं था, कोई संबंध नहीं था. हम लोग हॉस्पिटल में जाते थे, हमें भगवान लगते थे डॉक्टर, और हॉस्पिटल मालिक तो ऐसे लगता था कि भाई जैसे उन्होंने तो भगवान की फौज खड़ी कर रखी है हमारे लिए.
I have not been connected to the medical line. When we went to hospitals, we thought they were gods, and
The doctors were gods.
doctors were gods, and we thought that the hospital owner has an army of such gods. I don't want to say everyone is bad, but because of some people of misdoings of some people, everyone gets a bad name. You won't believe that a 17-year-old boy had a stent put in his heart, and that day I was in tears. So from the time I've started, I got into reducing the price of stents. I get a lot of calls from patients and their families, and doctors, if I call hospitals, they do reduce the price of stents, but it is not possible that everyone calls me and everyone has money. Dr. Arun said that it's a business, and it is true that doctors have targets and they have to deliver on a particular number of cases so that they can meet their targets. So because I'm from the legal field, I have understood that stents also have a MRP, and so we are able to do something.
The
Maximum retail price.
And selling price also.
And selling price also. And there are a lot of problems, but it is people are not aware. So information people are not aware. Information is not there. So I had to take the legal route 5 times, twice public interest litigation, and I think thrice contempt of court. And it's very difficult because the terminology, the medical terminology is very difficult to know. Right now also he named 2 stents which I don't remember. So stent
10 billion rupees.
10 billion rupees business is business in India of stents. So 60% is still there, but 40% has been reduced. So what he's saying, the price of stent remains the same, but where they've increased is the rate of the bed, doctor charges, cost of oxygen and other things. So twice writ petitions have been put in the court for changing the system from package price to letting the consumers know individual price. So the fight will continue, although they went to the court twice and was not successful in getting the favorable ruling from the court, but the fight will continue for the price of stents for cancer, prices of cancer medicines, and yeah. So this is the first time that has happened in India that a pathway, legal way to protect patients' rights. So in India also, it should be the fundamental, health should be a fundamental right. There should be group insurances. Some lawyers have made group insurances, and if government supports insurance for health, it would be very good. And there is hope that some amount of corruption to reduce corruption in this country. There is hope. Every hospital, every doctor wants to experiment on the patient. They don't care if the patient is getting better, but they want to experiment on the patient. There is a hospital in Delhi where children are only born out of C-section. No woman has delivered normal. So I'm fighting. You should also fight. Take the legal route to fight. Maybe India will become much better than all your countries also someday. And judges also want in the courts that people should put petition for medicines and medical reasons. You are all from medical field, so maybe you all should also try the legal route.
So the focus of this presentation is a piece of legislation called the Karnataka Private Medical Establishment Act. It is an act meant for regulating the private healthcare establishments in the state of Karnataka. This act was actually enacted in the year 2007, and suddenly in 2016 the act grabbed the eyeballs of policy community, and I'm going to focus on this period with respect to this act, what happened in this period between 2016 to 17. Now suddenly, as I said, though the act was passed in the year 2007, the rules were notified in 2009, but after 10 years, almost after 10 years, suddenly the policy community paid attention to this act, to amend the act, how it was possible. So I just tried to apply this Kingdon's theory, John Kingdon, who is a political scientist, to understand what were the contextual conditions that favored this amendment process. So first, as we all discussed a lot, there's a huge problem with the private health sector. And one important event, which we call in the policy literature, we call as focus event, is the unwanted hysterectomies that happened in the Gulbarga district, which was disclosed by a civil society organization called the Karnataka Janarga Chiluvali. So that becomes really a triggering point for this amendment process. And then later an inquiry committee was formulated by the State Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. So there was a clear problem identified, and there was, because of this focus event, this gave some kind of pressure to the state government to act immediately with regards to the quality of care in the private health sector. There was also this National Human Rights Commission issued notice with regards to the unwarranted hysterectomy event. So this created a lot of pressure for the government to act immediately. And then what happened is that what are the possible policy solutions? Several policy solutions were discussed among the policy table. At that time, one of the former health ministers, he also indicated maybe we should have an ombudsman-like structure in the state of Karnataka. Of course, there was opposition from the doctors and the hospital association. And finally, the government decided that we will amend KPME and we will not adopt CEA because there is a danger. Because if we adopt CEA, even the public hospitals will come under the ambit of CEA and they are in danger. If you try to apply those standards, we have to close down many of the hospitals. So you see the people who are actually supporting the reforms. Like for example, the civil society organizations, the KJC, Alternative Law Forum, even the researchers. So you see the linkages between them, it is so weak. So when an opportunity arises at the state level, you see the linkages between the people who are opposing the policy, but people who are actually mostly supporting the policy. But there was an opportunity for the civil society and the academia to form alliances, but because of some difference of opinion, that alliance was not built. You see, this is important, quite important, to resolve the differences and to build alliances to counter this giant private sector monolith.
Thank you.